Welcome to my tutorial for Joe and Mac for the NES. And this is not going to be a refined tutorial where I go and do each section without damage. It's just going to be my playthrough unedited. This was my successful run of the game, so you're going to see some depths. I actually cut it really close. But I should be able to explain the basic strategies I used to beat it, which I think will be useful. It's a very short game. It only takes maybe 14 minutes to beat if you don't die. This almost would have been a no-death run for me, but once I lost my weapon on the purple pterodactyl, I was pretty much fucked. I almost didn't complete it at that point, and I may have had to start over. The game took me around 2 hours and 59 minutes to beat. You get a few lives, but there's no continues. So you have to beat it on 1cc. And I think you can earn a few 1-ups from points, I believe. It seemed like I did. For this first boss, just merely jump and throw two of your projectiles, whichever you happen to have. Probably the tomahawks at this stage of the game. And just jump, throw two to his head, jump again, throw two to his head. And just keep doing that, and you'll keep pushing him back. And there's a rhythm to it where you can keep him pushed back into the corner if you time it right. And that's what you saw me doing in the video. It's really, really easy if you do that. Now, the second time you fight that guy, he's going to show up again. He doesn't seem to have any knockback when you hit him. So that version is harder, but it's still very easy. So the stages, as you can see in this game, are extremely short for the most part. And usually very easy, aside from a few later stages that are a little tricky. So for this guy, you want to try to jump over the rocks and throw two projectiles into his mouth. And I believe it only damages his mouth when his mouth is open. But I may be wrong about that. But you just want to keep firing at his head. Don't worry about looking at if his mouth is open or not. Just keep jumping up and firing. Now, if you hold up when you press jump, you do like a super jump. And that's what you're going to need to reach a lot of things like the enemy's mouth. You'll need to do a super jump. So get used to doing that. I don't even use the regular jumps, really. I pretty much only use the super jump. I find that to be, all you really need. So if you can, as early as you can, you want to try to get the wheel weapon that you see that I have. And the way you get different weapons is by killing these cavemen that have this sack. And when you kill them, you'll get a weapon. Avoid the knife at all costs. It looks like a little knife or a fucking prison shank. Avoid that shit. It's the worst weapon in the game, and it's a big problem if you have it. You're almost better off committing suicide because it's really fucking bad. And when you lose a life, you go back to your default weapon, which is the tomahawk, which is perfectly serviceable weapon. It's not going to be great for some of the harder bosses, but it works for most of them, well enough. But the wheel is probably the best weapon you can get aside maybe the fireball. If you find the fireball, it looks like a popcorn, get that. Now, this is the hardest boss in the game, strangely enough. What you want to do is get between these two plants and just keep jumping up and firing out two of your weapons. Hopefully, if it's the wheel, it's going to make it a lot easier. But if you have the tomahawks, it's going to take a lot more hits. And you're not seeing that here. And it's probably going to get down to the very last bit of health on your side. So that you really want to practice with save and load states. I recommend practicing the whole game with save states to make sure you can beat all the bosses with just the base weapon of the tomahawks. You want to make sure you can beat them all with the base weapon in case you don't have any power-ups. Because if you lose a life, you will have to go back to the plant and fight it with the tomahawks. And you won't have any weapon pickups available, so you'll have to do it that way. That's the hardest boss in the game, like I said. And my main strategy was to just stay between the two plants and just keep jumping and firing in a rhythm of 2 shots to the plant. And, see, these stages are so fucking short, I don't even have time to explain. For this guy, you want to wait until he's coming right back from the edge of the screen and get your hits in as he's flying back in, and then get back down on the ground pretty much. You can also fire up as he's coming down. Those are the two main strats that I use. I try to avoid the small birds most of the time, but if you have the wheel, you can kill the pterodactyl birds, the smaller ones. You can kill them pretty fast, maybe in 1 shot or 2 shots. But 1 shot, I guess. But yeah, that's the idea. You're just going to keep repeating this pattern. And you want to try to jump over those small birds or kill them. And this is one of the trickier bosses. It's not nearly as hard as the plant, though. But there's a purple version of this boss that's quite hard. It's quite a bit harder than this one, it seems. And that's one of the hardest bosses in the game, along with the plant, though I think the plant is possibly harder. The plant is so bullshitty, having to get between two of those enemy plants. Now, you can kill the enemy plants, but they take so many hits, it's not worth trying to kill them. You're better off just getting between the two plants and doing a super jump and launching 2 projectiles at the plant. Now, keep in mind, with the plant boss, if you move too far to the right, you get sucked into the plant and instantly killed no matter how much health you have. So that's another problem with the plant boss. It's a very cheap fight, and you're really going to want to practice that with saves to make sure you have it down. Beat the boss 3 or 4 times in a row if need be to make sure that when you get to it, you'll be able to handle it in a legit run. And practice it with the base weapon. Use just the tomahawks because you're probably going to... There's a good chance you're going to get there with just the tomahawks. Now, on the plant stage, you also don't want to take damage, and it's easy not to. What you want to do is with the enemy plants, you want to wait until they fire their shots off, and then you jump to approach the plants and kill them, clear them out slowly, and just move through the levels slowly. It's an easy stage, but you don't really want to take damage on it if you can avoid it because you want to have full health and you want to bring that wheel weapon to the plant just to make it easier. Now, this guy is super easy. Not much to say about this guy. All you have to do is jump and shoot him in the head, and make sure you don't land on the fireballs. It's a super easy boss. He will rush you occasionally, but you can jump over his head when he rushes towards you. He rushes you at a very slow speed. So as long as you're using the super jump, you can jump right over him. That's probably the easiest boss in the game. So avoid that knife power-up. That's what I was talking about. That's a shit weapon. And you're pretty much useless once you get that until you find another weapon. So here it is again, the knife weapon that the guy dropped. Don't get that. What I'm looking for is, if I can get the fireball, I would upgrade to it from these wheels. But the wheels are very good for beating the entire game, so you don't really need any other weapons after you get these. For this guy, just jump and fire a few into his head and rinse and repeat. Try not to get hit by the bullets and the birds. You can also go right under his chin and rapidly fire straight up, I believe. I saw that in a speed run. I didn't know about that, though. But you may want to try it. So you can see the stages are so short, I barely have time to explain some of the boss strategies. But they're usually very easy. The last few stages get a little trickier. But so far they've been extremely easy. One thing I did was I set my jump button and my projectile button both to rapid fire. Which, it sounds kind of odd to set your jump button to turbo, but the reason I did it was because I could, jump as soon as I hit the ground by holding it down, which was kind of an interesting way to play. It worked out well once I got used to it. I've done that shit before in some games and actually pulled bullshit with that method in a few games, or at least one game that I can think of. So, I thought it would be interesting to try. I like to experiment with shit like that. So this is the same kind of thing, except this time your shots don't push the guy back. That's the only difference with this version of this T-Rex. Or whatever the fuck it's supposed to be. But it's easy. When it corners you, you may take some hits, but you can jump over it and shoot it in the back of the head with a super jump. So that is an option as well, but it should be very easy. Now is where the stages start getting more challenging. So take out this guy first. And you want to try to take these guys out before they get close to you, the lower ones. Try to take them out. They take 2 wheels to take out, but depending on what weapon you have, you may not be able to take them out, and you may have to just jump over them. Now, before you jump this gap, try to clear out one of these guys or jump over them as they're approaching. But if you don't do that and you time it the wrong way, you'll land right when the guys are spawning again, and they'll knock you into the hole, which does a huge amount of damage. It doesn't instantly kill you, but it does a lot of damage. I actually played this very sloppily, and I got to the boss with almost no health, and because of that, I ended up dying here and losing my really good weapon. So I almost thought I wasn't going to beat the game on this run. Because losing this weapon makes the boss much harder. And you're going to see me beat him with the tomahawks. But I'm probably going to die, at least once more. I think I was down to my last life, but I was able to do it. But this version is harder. I think it's because there's more birds and shit flying around. That might be why it's more. I think there's always 2 birds on screen plus the boss. I think that extra bird flying around makes it much harder than the last time you fought him. So now you get a checkpoint close to the boss, as you can see. So it's not, you don't have to go too far to get back to the boss. So I'm not sure if I succeeded on this attempt, but it is very, very hard with the tomahawks. I was trying the strategy of firing straight up, which sometimes the boss will dive right into your straight up shots, but I was seeing if I could just spam it and not try to fight the boss normally. Because when I had a better weapon, I was actually able to beat this boss by doing that, from what I remember. But I think I had a better weapon when I did that technique. So that little method that worked for me in practice was not working here. So I pretty much fucked myself over on this life. And I don't think I succeeded on this life because I wasted so much of my health by playing sloppy, trying this technique out. So I don't really recommend that. At least not with this weapon. It's better really to try to fight the boss normally and just play it normally. So you'll see me get a little bit into a rhythm. I think the next life is when I guess I had a few lives left. I may beat him on this life. I'm not sure. I know I was cutting it really close. So now that was a bad fucking start. By falling in that pit, I drained a lot of my health. I'm not sure if this is a successful one. It might be down all the way to the end. But yeah, you want to get used to the timing so that you're throwing your tomahawks to the right edge of the screen as he's approaching. There's a little bit of a delay from when he goes through the left side of the screen till he loops over to the right. There's a slight delay, and you want to kind of commit that to muscle memory so you can get those hits in. And it took me a while to get into the rhythm. I really wasn't getting into the rhythm at this point. And I'm guessing this is probably going to be another failed attempt. Because it's hard to do this on low damage with the base weapon. So yeah, I think after I die here, then you will see the successful attempt. I think it was. I think on my successful attempt, I barely did it as well. I have a feeling this is not going to be it. Yeah, see. So yeah, I was down to the last life. This was almost going to be like a restart. You really shouldn't be taking any damage from this boss checkpoint because you want to have full health. And it's easy enough if you know how to dodge everything. So now you will see me pull it off. I think just barely. But you want to get those tomahawks in as the guy is coming out from the edge of the screen. So you really need to time it so that the guy runs into him. And shooting up gives you a little extra damage too. After you land your initial shots, stand there and shoot up a little bit. You'll get some extra damage. So I was starting to do, quite a bit better. Still taking a lot of damage, though. Luckily, you can take a lot of hits in this game. So this guy and the plan are definitely the hardest bosses. Much harder than the last boss, which is really easy. Very unbalanced game. And it has kind of laggy, delayed control, too, and floaty movement with some slowdown. So it really doesn't play great. I'm going to try to beat the other versions of the game on Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy. I think I'm going to try them out again. Apparently this may be the hardest version because of, it can be kind of cheap. But I'll have to see if I agree with that. So yeah, you see I'm barely beating this. I think I was down to my last little line of health, or 2 lines of health, but I did squeeze through. But there's definitely a rhythm to it. That's another boss you're really going to want to practice with save and load states to get the timing down and get used to dodging those small birds. Because you can see I didn't play it well, but I did squeeze through. Like I said, this is by no means a refined tutorial. It's really not refined. This was just me, beating the game for the first time, and that was it. I didn't go back to this one. So I was able to pick up the wheels again, luckily, from that drop from that caveman with the bag. So now I actually have a good weapon again. So I'm in good shape for now. Very short stage yet again. Just, try to bust through and take as less damage as possible. This is the same fight again, except now there's a bird. Maybe he fires a little faster, I'm not sure. But the main thing I noticed was that there's now that bird flying around, which is more of an annoyance. So you may get hit a few times. But it should be very easy. You shouldn't take too much damage on the stage itself. So soon you're going to see a big fuck up, which was a big problem for me. I think this is it. See, I'm trying to avoid that little knife on the ground, but you see I got bounced into the knife. So now I have a completely unusable weapon for the final boss. So you'll see what happens if you get the knife, or at least what happens when I get the knife. But yeah, I really couldn't do shit to the final boss with this shitty little knife. It doesn't even go that far. I think the idea behind it is that it shoots really fast, but it does like no fucking damage. And it's a shitty weapon. It has no width to it. It's so thin. It goes over everything. It's real shit. I can see why, in speed runs and shit of the game, people are not using that fucking weapon at all. So anyway, after I die, you'll see how easy this final boss is. It's a very easy boss. Now with that knife, that might be like an expert challenge or something, trying to beat that guy with the knife. I mean, that would make it a lot harder. So now all you got to do, you get a checkpoint very close to the final boss once you get to him. So now, with the base tomahawk weapon, you just jump and you fire 2 in his head. And as you're coming down, you can get another 2 too. So you can get about 4 shots in one jump. They don't always all land, but you're getting 3 or 4 shots, with each jump if you do it right. See? Now I'm using rapid fire, so for me, I just hold down the fire button and it does about 4 axes before my feet touch the ground. So, that makes it very easy. And you're just doing some general dodging. Now, if he runs at you and runs into you, you're not going to take that much damage if he runs into you. So don't worry about it. But you can duck under his legs when he jumps over you, I believe. But I never even learned how to do that. I didn't need to. All you really got to focus on is jumping and landing your axes and try to get 4 in with each jump if you can. That's the goal. And, try to jump between the birds so you don't get knocked around too much. But that's about it. It's a strange game. It's super unbalanced difficulty-wise. The stages are mostly super, super easy for the most part. And the bosses, a lot of them are very easy as well, except for, maybe like 2 of the bosses are quite difficult. The other flying bird, the green one, is kind of tough too, but not nearly as hard as the purple one with the multiple birds flying around. So yeah, the main issue really is going to be the plant, and I recommend, like I said, practice the plant with save states, practice it a lot. And try to stay in the middle and land those shots, but just practice it a lot till you find the rhythm, because it's probably going to be down to the wire with barely beating it each time. So you don't want to keep getting back to the plant like I was, and because I didn't practice it enough, I ended up having to repeat the game a lot and start from the beginning of the game many times. But like I said, luckily it's a short game, so if you do have to restart, you're not set super far back. Eventually you'll get back to where you were. But, always make a save state. If you end up dying in your legit run when you're trying to beat the game and you end up dying on a certain part, make sure you saved around that part so that you can practice from where you died at last. Just practice it again and refresh your practice. Then the next time you get there, you should be able to beat it the next time. And just keep doing that. Whenever you run into a part, if you didn't practice it enough the first time, just practice it again with save states. And then when you get back there, you should be able to beat it. What I did first was I did a full practice run of the game, which took me about 53 minutes. I used save states to basically practice all the bosses pretty much, and any sections I thought might be troublesome. And, there were some parts I didn't practice enough, but it definitely helps to do a practice run. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.